I passed training class, which pretty much everyone did, and now you're a full-time trader trainee. My first day of training class, I'll never forget this. They had a PA system that was always blasting what we called the squawk box, which was, financial commentary from the futures pit. And the first day they blasted Ramstein because one of the guys thought it would be really funny to scare or to psych out the trainees. But I just thought, man, this is the exact place that I want to work. And the way that it looked was training was completely unpaid. Your job was to take the basic amount of knowledge that you learned in training class and make $2,000 in a month. You're given $10,000 of buying power, and you were told to do it. Maybe 1 out of 200 guys were able to do it, and they would usually do it within 3 to 4 months. Graduate, that is. And there were really only two rules: no overnight positions and no holding trades past your shutdown. And both of those things would get you fired. So your shutdown was the amount of money that you were allowed to lose before you were forced to stop trading. And for trainees, that was $100. So you were allowed to lose $100 a day, and then you had to shut your system down, and you weren't allowed to trade anymore for that day. And the reason they had a shutdown system was so guys wouldn't end up hemorrhaging money, because rookie traders are horrible and hold losers forever and do every wrong thing, because when you're new to the market, you have every wrong instinct. But before the system actually shut you down, you had to punch out of your trade. So I saw a few guys get fired because they were holding a trade into a $200, a $300, $400 loss and not listening to their training manager. That and trying to hold an overnight position were the only things you weren't allowed to do. Now, training was, as I said, was supposed to take 4 months. If you're going to make it, guys would either quit or get fired by that point. And there must have been thousands of guys who came through the door. Because I was at head office, this was the most popular branch. But I wanted to do it in 2 months. I thought, okay, I'm smarter than these guys. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to go to the library every day after work and study, and I'm going to do it in 2 months. But I was dead wrong. It actually took me 1 year of banging my head against the wall, not making money for an entire year. And, every other day I wanted to go home and kill somebody, but I didn't give up, and I actually ended up with the longest graduation in company history. And the only reason they didn't fire me is because I went out for drinks with my managers, and they liked me. And they could see how hard I was working. So in some way I was proud of the fact that, I powered through. And that really just comes down to dedication. And whenever I want something, I've always had an unnatural level of dedication. And it is my belief that that is the only way to succeed in something that's difficult. So once I graduated, I became a full-time trader, and from there on, my income pretty much went up consistently with every month. It was like the training wheels were off, and I just consistently got better. So let me break down what the culture looked like. This was a bunch of young guys, aggressive, money hungry. Most of them, with the exception of me, were degenerate gamblers, and everybody was under 27. 30 was ancient and 35 was non-existent. There were no 35-year-old. There was no one over 33 at the company. Prop trading, especially the high frequency, crazy leveraged scalping, was a young man's game. Much like, e-athletes who peak at 22, video game athletes. It's not uncommon for the best traders to peak at 23, 24. And most of the guys who were good at trading were good at video games, myself included. So basically, this is how it looked. Once I started to get good, me and the other top traders, we filed off a corner for ourselves to do whatever we wanted. We set up the computer speakers, and we were blasting hip-hop, smoking weed at lunch, drinking at our desk. It was a madhouse. And, some days you would come in and you would make $6,000, and some days you would be shut down because you made a stupid trade at 9:30 in the morning, right off the opening bell, and lost $4,000. And you didn't know what type of day it was going to be, and you had no idea if you were going to make money, lose your mind. I mean, I was smoking almost a pack a day because the stress levels were so high, and I would say that like 70% of the guys there smoked. So it was really a madhouse. And you know, it was one of the most fun times of my life, one of the most stressful times of my life, one of the most interesting times of my life, and it was the only job that I've ever liked, because technically it was not really a job. I was classified as an independent contractor, and that meant that I could come and go as I pleased. So the market opened at 9, but I could come in at 10:30, I could come in at noon, I could come in whenever, and I could take any day off that I wanted because I was not an employee of the company. And believe me, I missed a lot of days because at 22, 23, I was not the focused person that I am now. I would wake up at 1 or 1:30 because we were at the bar all night the night before, and I couldn't be bothered to shower and shave to get into work, you know, and to get to work before 4 when the market's closed. So I just wouldn't go in. And as long as you made money every month, you could do that. You could do whatever you wanted. You know, the system was a pure meritocracy, and just like how it should be. Culture was based on meritocracy. There was no HR department. There was no censoring. You know, guys you'd hear cunt and bitch and cocksucker, you know, yelling at their monitors every 5 minutes, yelling at the stock. You know, oh, Texas Instrument, you fucking whore. Pfizer, that fucking cunt owes me money. I took a bath on that ugly bitch. That is the kind of language you would hear 24/7. This place was an absolute HR nightmare, to say the least, and that's why we didn't have an HR manager. It was insane, and at least 10% of the traders would go to the courtyard to smoke weed at lunch, and I remember trading high, you're completely absorbed in the reality of the screen and all the flashing colors and all the bids and offers moving. And, you know, I did that a few times until I lost $2,000 because I literally forgot that I was in a trade and I forgot to punch out. And it took me 10 minutes to look at my screen and realize that I was down $2,000. And I decided, maybe smoking weed and trading, you know, $3 million is not a good idea. So 2006, our top guy took home $1 million. At the peak of my powers, I had $3 million in buying power. I had a daily shutdown of $5,000, and in my best day, I grossed $17,000 and took home $12,000. I'm going to talk about the money because the money was crazy, and I can tell you that I've never made that kind of money since, and that fast. And at one point, it was actually easier to make the money than it was to deposit it. Okay, I would go into the bank when we got our checks. The first thing we do was go to the bank and then go to the bar. And I'm telling you, imagine two kids, backwards hats, walk in, each with a check of $80,000 US, which in Canada was like 110, 120,000 Canadian dollars. It took, every time I went to the bank, it took an average of 30 minutes to cash the check. The teller would have to call another teller, and then they'd have to call the supervisor. And, you know, I might as well have been bringing in a duffel bag full of money and saying, like, you know, can you put this in a garbage bag for me or something? Like, they were just incredibly suspicious. And, you know, it was hilarious. And it was just the most bizarre reality that you